Black Americans, Stalin wanted to erase the hidden truth of the Afro-Soviets. They packed their hopes into suitcases, kissed their mothers goodbye, and crossed the Atlantic with dreams of a better life, not in Paris, not in Liberia, but deep in the Soviet Union. Yes, you heard that right. In the 1930s, dozens of African-American families, actors, engineers, students, and everyday dreamers boarded ships to escape the crushing weight of Jim Crow America. They weren't looking for fantasy. They wanted jobs, dignity, a future where they weren't called out of their names or lynched for sport. And believe it or not, the Soviet Union, yes, Stalin's Soviet Union, offered that chance. America wasn't listening. Roosevelt didn't care. But Moscow was sending invitations. The Communist Party in the U.S. painted the Soviet Union as a racial utopia, a workers' paradise where class trumped color. Soviet propaganda promised these Black Americans a fresh start, and many believed it. They said goodbye to Harlem, to Chicago, to Birmingham, and headed straight into the iron heart of Russia. Some were promised roles in films, others were given scholarships, factory jobs, or positions in engineering. They learned Russian. They wore thick coats in the brutal winters. They took Soviet names. And for a while it worked. For a while, they were free. But then came the purge. Joseph Stalin, once eager to parade Black Americans as proof of Soviet superiority, changed his mind. The same men and women who had once been hailed as heroes of the proletariat were now viewed with suspicion. Why? Because they were American. Because they spoke English. Because they still had family ties back in the States. Paranoia set in. And when Stalin's purges began in earnest in the late 1930s, no one was safe. Not the poets, not the factory workers, not even the children. Black Americans were arrested on false charges of espionage. Some were tortured. Others were executed without trial. Entire families vanished in the dead of night, swallowed by the Soviet secret police. No headlines, no protests, just silence. But here's the twist they don't want you to know. Many of these stories were never told because America didn't want them told either. Why would the U.S. government want to admit that its own black citizens felt safer, more human in Stalin's Russia than they did in Alabama or Mississippi? Why would they broadcast the fact that talented black minds had to flee to a communist regime just to be recognized? No, both sides had reasons to bury this history, one for embarrassment, the other for betrayal. Take the case of Robert Robinson.
Soviet Russia and teach our young people. Soviet Russia and teach our...
An African-American toolmaker from Detroit, he went to the USSR in 1930 to work in a Soviet factory. He thrived, at first. But when Stalin's spies began tightening their grip, Robinson found himself trapped. He was accused of being an American spy. He lived under constant surveillance for decades. It took him 44 years to finally return to the U.S. And he wasn't alone. Langston Hughes, the legendary poet, even visited these black expatriates during his trip to the Soviet Union in the early 1930s. What he saw stunned him. Black families speaking Russian, children reciting Communist Party slogans, and black actors performing in state-sponsored films like Black and White, a Soviet movie about racism in the American South. But the film was never released. The actors disappeared. The story was wiped clean. So what happened to the Afro-Soviets? Many were swallowed by the Gulag system. Some were deported. Others assimilated completely, marrying Russians and vanishing into the population. Their children, often mixed race, grew up in a system that no longer had use for them. Forgotten, isolated, invisible. And to this day, their legacy remains largely ignored. It's a chilling reminder that racism isn't always as obvious as a burning cross or a barking dog. Sometimes it wears the face of political paranoia. Sometimes it comes disguised as a promised land. But the truth always finds its way through. They left America to be treated like humans. They were betrayed by a system they didn't fully understand. And their stories were buried under the rubble of Cold War politics, until now. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a reckoning. Because these weren't just black Soviets. They were African Americans, our ancestors, our blood, our legacy, who were forced to disappear from two nations that refused to protect them. Legal disclaimer. This essay is a dramatized exploration of real historical events based on public records, memoirs, and academic sources. While efforts have been made to ensure factual accuracy, some narrative elements have been stylized for storytelling purposes. Always consult primary historical sources or scholarly research for academic or educational use.